Good morning. Today is November 17th, 2002. We're at the home of Mr. Ben Mechling at his home in Fort Collins, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans Oral History Project. Good morning, Mr. Mechling.
Good morning.
Thank you for participating in this program.
Thank you.
Let's start out, if we can. Can you tell us when and where you were born?
I was born in Fort Collins. You know where the museum is? 2 blocks south is an apartment building. And on the side of it, it's got a round metal chute. And that's where I was born. And as I understand, the chute is when they had body parts, they'd send them down through that chute. Don't know that that's correct, but that's what I've been told.
Yeah. What was your date of birth?
11/11/19.
Okay.
The first armistice.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And a little bit about your siblings. How many siblings? And a little bit about your parents as well. Your parents and how many siblings you had?
Well, as the photo up there shows, I had a father, mother, and 2 sisters, and they were both older. My father died in 1926, and I never really had the chance to have a father. So what can happen after being brought up by 3 women? I'm still here, so they must have done something right.
All right, well, let's dive right in on your experiences. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you entered the service?
Had to work so I could go to school. I started school in 1937 at CSU, or Aggies, but I'd stay out a semester and work at the sugar factory, because back then my mother was a seamstress and there was no money. I mean, I had to, so when I worked in a campaign at the sugar factory is how I stayed alive in school. And I did that 2 and I think maybe 3 years, 3 different campaigns. And we lived at 801 Whedbee at that time. And I would walk to the sugar factory. The part of the building is still there. And the job was tough. It was pulling presses. And you pulled cement, canvas filters, which had about 2 inches of Gleck oil filtering through the sugar before it went somewhere else. And you had to take those off, put them on a wheelbarrow, carry them over to the washroom. Well, my first job was at 11 o'clock at night, and at 11:01, this is a joke, I don't know whether it was that fast or not, but at 11:01 I lifted my first wheelbarrow up, and from then on I bent over and picked up the mess I made. I had never pushed a wheelbarrow, but it was the only time I dumped one. From then on I did it fine. But one day the chief chemist come out and asked me if I would like to work in the chemistry room. And I guarantee you, I was back in there before he ever got through talking to me. And from then on, I worked in the lab where you tested the sugar. And an interesting note about that is it had picture window looking out north, and the lake and that area is still there. I'm looking out, and this lady comes running toward the factory. Well, I sensed something was wrong, so I ran down and met her, and her boy, they were in the water. I kept on going over there, and this one boy was holding on with ice like this, and I got a hold of him and handed him to another guy, And then the other one, I just moved my foot back and forth, and I come across his body, and I reached down and pulled him out, and he was dead when I
Uh,
and that was the sideline of the work at the factory.
yeah. I think, as we were talking earlier, during that time as well, you joined the National Guard.
Oh, yeah.
Is that correct?
I joined the National Guard at, well, it was 1937. I couldn't, you had to be 17 or 18 something. Anyhow, I joined, and the reason I joined is you got paid $1 a quarter, and every quarter you got $4. And believe it or not, that was quite a bit of money back then. There wasn't any money. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and but that's why I joined the National Guard. It wasn't maybe not so much about wanting to be in the Army, but it got me in, and from then on, the rest is history.
Yeah. Do you remember where you were and what you thought when you heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
Oh, I know exactly where I was. I was in Camp Forest, Tennessee. I was walking from my barracks over to the, where the store was.
The PX?
PX, god dang, I've been out of it too long. I was walking over there to get a pack of cigarettes. At that time I smoked. And I was halfway over when all hell broke loose with everybody yelling and hollering, and I can't tell you exactly what did happen, but that's where I was when Pearl Harbor. And we had just been on maneuvers in North Carolina, and actually we were on the way back to regroup and move to Camp Roberts, California. But because of the Pearl Harbor, our deal was canceled. Another reason I'm still here.
Hmm.
And that was the luck.
Hmm.
And,
From now, you were still in the National Guard at this point, or were you in the Army?
no, I was in the Army. Well, it was in 1941. We were called in, and we left Fort Collins, where Old Main used to be at the college. The railroad track runs by there, and it's still there. That's where we boarded the train to go to Denver and head for Tennessee. And that was in the evening, so I didn't have anybody around to be there, except my mother. I guess she was there, and but well, there was a lot of people around, but I just didn't have a very big family. I mean, the sisters, they were somewhere else, but that's where it all started, on the track, and it's still there.
Yeah. Between that time and the end of the war, did you have a chance to get home between then, or was that the last time you left?
I got home several times.
Okay.
On leave. I don't remember whether it was every year or not, but in 44, my mother died, and I had to go home. The way I did that, I went up to Tulsa. There was an air base there, and explained my predicament, and they said, we got a plane going to Denver, you can go. And I was put in I think it was a B-17, and I had to sit in the nose of the thing. And when it come in for a landing in Denver, it was a student pilot and an instructor. And when they come into Denver, the plane tilted toward the ground, and I thought I was done. But the guy pulled back, and obviously we landed all right.
Was that your first plane ride?
Well, in an army plane, yeah.
Okay, well, after from North Carolina, then where did you want to tell your story of how you progressed then from where you went and tell your story from there on in then?
From
After Pearl Harbor, and you want to tell how
Pearl
things...
Harbor. Well, I was in a tank destroyer battalion, and this picture up here, you can see me in a tank, and I didn't want to be in a tank destroyer battalion. So I took lessons from up there, just on my own, and decided I'd like to get in the Air Corps. So I tried it, and I got in, but I also washed out. And it's another reason I'm still here. I washed out. And then I was sent to camp, sent to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. That's where the field artillery was big. And from there I was sent to Camp River in Oklahoma. Man, everything's working together here.
That's okay.
Anyhow, I was put in this unit. They were just, all of them were just new units. And this one boy came to my battery. He hadn't even finished high school, and he stuttered. So I made him my driver, because if he was my driver, there's another 100 guys aren't going to make fun of him or anything. And that's one of the best things I ever did, because we're still correspond at Christmas time. And to make a long story short, when we got overseas, and I was, before I ever went home, I insisted that he finish school over there, so that when you finish school, you can get in a GI Bill of Rights and go to college. He did it. And by then, though, I had gone home, and but he got his high school diploma over in Salzburg. That's where we were, Salzburg, Austria. To make a long story short, he went to school, graduated in math or something. Anyhow, he went to work for Reynolds Aluminum in Louisville, Kentucky. He grew to general manager of Reynolds Aluminum in Louisville. And he gives me credit for the fact that I got the ball rolling. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was sure good for him.
Now, how did you get into the artillery? Is that something you were able to choose, or were you just told you're going into the artillery? Or?
Well, the field artillery at ROTC here at CSU back then was field artillery, and when I took did I say about the correspondence course I took?
No, you didn't.
Well, I took a correspondence course through the field artillery in Denver, and I went down there and passed the board. I had to drill a battery and had on a uniform, of course, and it was all wool. And while I had to drill the battery, and my hands were so wet, I had to dry them on the side. I can still see my standing trying to dry them. I was nervous, but to make a long story short, I made it. And so when February 24th, 1941, instead of going in as a buck sergeant, I went in as a second lieutenant. And
is that in part due because of of that correspondence course and the fact that, unlike a lot of men, you had some college behind you? Is that how?
Well, I didn't have much college. When I came back, I went again, but I don't know, I could probably get 2 years credits if I was lucky. In fact, I may go back, but don't count on it. I was lucky. I moved to Estes Park after the war was over. Got in the retail business, a gift shop, and in the wintertime there was nothing there. I went to Phoenix and I got a gift shop in Camelback Inn, and in the following years I ended up with 3 down there, and in 65 I sold out because everybody said you're supposed to retire at 65. Well, I retired at 65, and lived till 75, and I thought that was a miracle. And then when I got to be 85, I thought, geez, this is really more than I ever expected. And then my last birthday, last Saturday, to be 87, forget it. But I'm going to go for 90, 1 year at a time.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I do make 90, I'll go for 94 because I know a couple people that are 94.
Okay.
And I don't want them to get ahead of me.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to your story then.
Okay.
From Oklahoma then, when did you ship out for overseas?
Oh boy, that was like 40, the end of 43. I was in New York City on New Year's Eve, and we had moved to Camp Kilmer. It was a staging area, and there were 3 of us captains had gone to New York City for New Year's Eve, and I can remember we walked from one bar to another, all that, and then to get back to the camp we went down to get on the train. The train had already gone. So a guy at the station there said there'll be a train going out, like boxcars. Jump on one of those, and when you get so many minutes down the road, jump off, and then you'll be close to Camp Kilmer. 3 captains trying to come in late for Beverly. It just couldn't happen, and it didn't. We made it, and I don't know how we did it, but we did it. We jumped on, we jumped off, and we ran to the camp. And then shortly, I think it was probably the next 2 or 3 days, we took off for Germany, or at least we didn't know how we were going to get there, but we boarded the ship there, and the exact location I can't tell you what it is, but I know that we had a bed to sleep in for 2 or 3 days that it took to get across. I can't even. At one time I could remember the name of the boat. But
Yeah.
Anyhow, it was big enough that it didn't sink.
Yeah. How was the crossing? Was it?
Oh, it was.
I've heard all sorts of stories about how
Well,
packed full of men and rough waters and.
my battery was down in the bottom. I mean, in the hole. I mean, they were down there, and you won't believe what I did. But I went down there and tried to pass out peanuts to those guys that were all sick, throwing up and everything. And I decided I'd better get the hell out of there, so I went back upstairs. But
You never got seasick yourself?
no,
No.
I didn't.
No.
Well, it was up a little higher, I guess. I don't know, but to tell you the truth, I just went to bed and there's nothing you could do. If they needed me, they knew where I went. But you just laid there, and like I said, there was nothing you could do. And it was on the same way coming home. I went to bed on the way home, and there wasn't anything to see. You looked at water, and it just wasn't very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But we landed.
Where did you guys land?
In
Europe?
Marseille, France.
Okay.
On that map, you might get a view of that with your camera.
I will at the end, yes.
You can see Austria there to the right.
Uh-huh.
We started over here at Marseille, and as you can see, we went, and I've got it down that I crossed the Rhine 4 different times, and
so that rainbow lays out the trail of the path of what you...
That was a Rainbow Division.
Yeah, right.
And when we first went into position at Limonest, France, and we relieved, and this is an unusual story, we relieved the 45th Division, which was from here. The infantry was from here, and Colonel Murphy was the commander, and I got to see him for a minute because they moved on and we took over, and we were there for a month.
And you knew Colonel Murphy from Fort Collins? Or did you run into anybody from home?
He had a clothing store on North College, and I didn't buy much clothing, but I knew him. Anyhow, you just knew somebody. That was kind of strange.
Yeah, I'll bet. And then from there, where did take me? I guess along this path, this rainbow path.
Limonest, France, is where we went into position, put our guns in position, and we fired them. And this paper here tells who fired the first round. It was B Battery fired the first round, and it's that, well, what the heck? Anyhow,
well, that's okay.
it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
We were there for a month, and we'd send out a patrol. Why we had to send, well, it was my forward observer group that went out, and this one soldier, his name was Perry, Corporal Perry, got a piece of flak in his butt, and they brought him in, and I lived in a cave. I mean, the 45th had built it, and it was neat. I mean, we had, well, there was my first sergeant, my driver, and one other, I don't know, in there. And so I brought this Corporal Perry down into the cave, and he was crying, and he's gonna die and everything. It was crazy. So I had a bottle of booze, and I poured him a big shot and had him drink it, and he passed out. And in the story, he was all right the next day.
Yeah. Well, you would send out patrols to call back locations for you?
Well, yeah, right.
Okay.
We'd find out. And what happened, I don't know. I mean, there's so damn many things happened all at once that you just can't remember everything.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we survived that location, and then we got the orders to move, and we started moving, and we didn't stop until the war was over. We kept going. And what I'm about to tell you about that advance is very interesting, I think. Mm-hmm. Right here is Captain Plunkett, who was A Battery commander, and myself. And that was taken on the side of the road because we had to stop because there was mines in the road. And Lieutenant Garrison was his forward observer. Oh, you don't want the picture.
Yeah.
Okay, Lieutenant Garrison was a big man. I mean, big as you. And the floorboard of a Jeep and the seat should have sandbags in it. But he was so damn big, he didn't use them. When he went by, us standing there beside our Jeep, he stood up, raised his hands like this, and waved to us, went down the road approximately 500 yards, hit a mine, and to this day I can still see him flying through the air. And of course when he landed he was dead. I mean, he was killed when he hit. And so Plunkett, he left me right there where that was, and he raced down there to see what he could do. Well, he couldn't do a thing. And he parked alongside the road, and another Jeep, instead of waiting to go down the road, went out around him, hit another mine, blew a hole in his driver's head right here, and he, in a matter of 2 minutes or less, he lost 2 men, an officer and an enlisted man. And we waited, and it cleared, and so we got the okay to go ahead. So I'm in a Jeep, the radio operator, my driver, and myself, and going up to where I'm supposed to put my guns. Well, I get where I can see, there's already somebody there, and it ain't us. It was Germans. So I called back to the battery, the location, and I knew their location. I couldn't do it today, I've forgotten all that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I called for 1 round of white phosphorus, and it landed right in the middle of that goose egg. Unbelievable, I that lucky. So the next command was fire for effect. And that's 4 105s. They raked it up and down, up and down. How much, I don't know. I can't remember how that worked. But anyhow, it worked. But in the meantime, I pulled up behind a house and a street over there. The streets were only wide enough for a buggy because they didn't have any cars on those farm places. And there was a row of houses here and a row of houses here and a fence here, and I'm looking out there. Well, I could see them, so it turned out they could see me. So the first thing you know, the mortar shell hit on the tile roof of this house, just, hell, not hardly farther than this, from me. My radio operator jumped out of the Jeep and went into the basement. And that left George Mitrovich to take my commands. And he stuttered. And by the way, by the time I got home from the Army, I was stuttering listening to him. Just a joke.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that shell didn't do anything. He left the. Now this is a true story. Last Christmas, I'm talking to Mitrovich. He's in Kentucky. And at that time, he told me that when they got back to the battery, some of those guys were going to shoot him. And I did not know that until just this last year. He told me then. But they didn't do it, so, but that would have been I don't know how you would have handled a situation like that. But anyhow, it didn't happen. But he was wrong leaving George and I to the Jeep. But to make a long story short, maybe it worked better because it was just the two of us and we did what we wanted to do and we did it right. And the problem. The next day, we drove up to where I was supposed to have those guns. There was no bodies, but there was quite a few bloody bandages. So I'm sure we did some damage, and we just kept on going, and that was it.
Okay. Well, continue on your rainbow path there for me.
Well,
or any additional stories as you
from
moved along.
Wimenoff, from Wimenoff, France, we took off, and in that article I'm giving you, it tells some of the things that I can't remember those names.
Yeah, sure.
Anyhow, but
Would be best if I could-
we ended up close to Birch's Garden.
Would you like me to pull that down for you?
No, that's all right. Oh, I see. Yeah, I just lifted up. It's
You want to set it here, and
yeah.
maybe that'll help you a little bit.
Oh yeah, but here's Marseille, France down here. Where the hell is it, right? Anyhow, we get here, right there. And we just went right on up this way. Haguenau, I remember that name. And the first night out, there was 4 guns and 4 trucks for that, and then the ammunition, and goddamn rain, and we got stuck and had to put grousers on. I don't know, the grouser is like a chain, but for a big truck like that, it's a heavy job. But anyhow, we got it done, and we kept on moving. And here's where we start going around. Here's the Rhine River,
Mm-hmm.
and sorry about that, Cap. Anyhow, General Patton was in charge of this, and first that doesn't make any difference. Siegfried line, we crossed that. And Mannheim, I remember that name. That's probably where we crossed, right into there, and went on up. Wurzburg, we liberated a wine cellar there, and everybody had a bottle of champagne. And I'm just looking at pictures in this book, and I don't know where that book was put together or how come I've got it, but it's after the war because all the officers are clean and shaven. And
Well, that prompts a question. What were conditions like? Were you able to, did you go long periods without a bath? And how was the food? You said you lived in a cave for a while. How were just living conditions for you during this time?
Well, everything was fine. But baking powder, I told everybody to write home for baking powder to make hot cakes or whatever. And they did, and we ate good. And what do I want to say? Well, that group there, on the end, and then the next group, there's one fellow in there that was real good at math, and he was a 4 observer. And where he was with the officer, which was this fellow that's standing in this first picture, where they were, why they weren't ahead of me, but they weren't. I just never did find out. And some things just didn't get to be important. But that Sergeant Melton was his name, and the one on the end was Swanson. Out of that 5, and the officer died here in Phoenix. I'm in Fort Collins now. I mean, when I was in Phoenix, he came there and he died there with cancer. Melton, who was the one I liked because of his math ability, I talked him into trying to get into West Point, and he did. He got into West Point and became a second lieutenant, and within the next year, he was walking across the street somewhere, got hit by a car and killed. The one on the end, Swanson, lived in Houston, became a millionaire, oil business, how or where, I don't know anything about it. He loaned somebody $1 million, and the guy went south with it. He went home and blew his hole in the head. So that's a sad group right there. That's just...
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the Eiffel Tower there. We've seen that. It gets painted every 7 years. I found that out down at the gym the other day.
In France, were the people very appreciative of your efforts? And
oh yeah.
Did they treat you well? And
that's right. I'm just sure. On VE Day, Eisenhower came riding down the street, standing up in the back of his car with his fingers like this for victory. And another fellow, and I don't know, I don't even remember who it was now, but he and I went in, got on that street, and there was an office building there, so we went in it, and I don't know whether we went up an elevator or walked it, but we did want to get up where we could see. And it was women's clothing or something, I don't know what. Anyhow, the factory place, and we stood there and watched Eisenhower come down the parade route. And
where were you? And you remember what you were thinking when you heard about that the Germans had surrendered the VE Day? What?
I was in. Isn't that can't say the name.
Is it toward the end of your route there down in Austria?
Chemsee. We were at Chemsee at Big Lake. King Ludwig's castle was on it, and we got to go through all that. But well, you don't have the pictures of shows Hitler's house, and I'll show you that. I'll have to, but Bischofshofen is where we ended up. Bischofshofen, Austria, and that was not far from where, well,
What they called the Eagle's Nest?
Eagle's Nest.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I gotta show you. This is the gate, the door to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, and it was, you had to walk several hundred yards back to get on it. But we couldn't get on it. We had to walk up the trail out around there, and that was quite a walk. But we got there. And when I got there, I got to take pictures of the barracks. That's the picture in his house. And it was a overcast day, so it doesn't look like anything, but that was it. And this was the kitchen, and this was another barracks, and this is the barracks, and that's the barracks. Now, a little side story to show you how stupid I am, or was, still am probably. I looted silverware out of the dining room. I just happened to pull open the door and all this. So I put it all in my pocket. Or I didn't put it in my pocket, I put it in I don't know, I probably had something with it. Anyhow, I took it. When I got to the battery, I wrapped it and everything, mailed it home. Some son of a gun liberated it from me, so I never got it. But that would have been fun to have kept that. That was how dumb I was. And this house here, it will see me sitting there. That was taken after the war was over. And we were there for a month, and we didn't sleep on the ground. We took a house. I had a Jewish boy in the battery that could speak some kind of German, and he would go, Rausgewek, get out, and we'd take over. So I lived in that house for a month. And it was a very nice house inside and all. And to jump ahead of things, 4 years after this, I took my boy over there to show him where I won the war. And I'm taking a video of this house, and the gal comes out wondering what's wrong, and I just told her 40 years ago, I slept here. That was the gal I kicked out of the house. She invited us in, we went in, and that house was exactly like I left it, and she hadn't changed anything, and but when we first went into those houses, I told everybody in the battery to don't trash them. The war is over, just don't trash them, because there were some outfits that did that. They trashed the stuff. What difference does it make? It's over with. And so when we went back, I've got a picture, but I don't have it here, of sitting in that same spot, and 40 years later, and well, that's the end of those stories. Well, here's now this is a Birch's garden here, and that's General Patton and General Marshall. This was a track meet that they were at. And it was shortly after that that Patton was killed in a wreck. Anyhow, that's there. Oh, and this picture here, can't remember it, was a German general, and his name was Suchet. He was a Frenchman, but he was in the German army and in the payroll division. And he walked into where my men were, and he wanted to surrender. But he wanted to surrender to an officer. He wouldn't surrender to anybody in the ranks. So they come and they I don't know where I was, but anyway, they come and got me, and I went and come in. He said, "Are you an officer?" I mean, he could speak English, and I said, "Yes." Well, you know, I had captain bars on the helmet up here, but I had mud on them because I didn't want that to be a target for somebody, and so I just reached up there and wiped it off. When he saw that, he took his holster off with the gun in, took my hand and placed it in my hand like that. And I had that. I took it home and I had it. But my boy was pretty little, and I got rid of the gun. I don't know what happened. End of that story. But that's him. General Souchay, Souchay. But how in the world he was French and he was in the German army, I don't know. I didn't question him. This is the guy that Big Bertha, the gun that the Germans had. Krupp was his name. Krupp. He was laying in that house, and they served papers on him, war criminal, but he died there. And when I took Terry back over, we went through Bishophaven again, and we stopped and asked people on the street and asked them how to get to the lodge. And he said, well, you can't drive there, you'd have to walk, and it's about 5 miles in. Well, we had been there, we had stayed there. This was the inside of that Krupp's lodge. It was a beautiful hallway with antlers all down, and but the son was running it, but he died with AIDS. And so we didn't get to go back into, that map shows that. That happened, I don't know how I put that picture there, but anyhow, that's me. And when I was first in Tennessee, they had an orderly, and that was Balapatos. He was a Greek, and that man, he was funny. But he was part of the story. Well, I don't think there's anything else that, but today, this is all gone. They've wiped it clear out, and when we went over there this time, we got to ride the elevator up. We didn't have to walk, and but it's all gone. It's just, there's no longer, it's no eagle's nest anymore like it was. That's all of that. All of those stories.
Okay.
I don't know if over here is anything that. Well, there's stuff. I could take that down and you could photograph that.
Yeah, I will at the end of the interview. You bet. We'll sit down and finish the interview, and
okay.
And then
because well, there's stuff on there that I can show you what a mean mother I was up there in the corner. I had just finished the obstacle course, and that was a pain in the rear end and somewhere else too. You had to get down on your hands and knees and under a barbed wire fence and pull yourself on the ground like this so that you didn't raise up. And while you're doing that, the machine gun is firing right over your head. And I didn't raise my head, that's why I'm still here. But then we had to cross a ditch of water that's as wide as this room, and I had to carry the gun like this so it wouldn't get wet. And when we got through with that, we had to run to the top of the hill. I came in second. There was one guy, he was an officer, but he was littler and stronger and meaner, and he got there first. But no problem.
So after the war was over, how much longer were you there in Europe before you were able to come back to the States? Roughly.
Had to wait 2 or 3 months, I guess. We had to get points, but I had enough points, but I just had to wait until there was I don't know how they did it, but we laid around, played gin rummy at night, and I can't even remember the town we were in then, but finally it came down to get ready and go, and get glad to do it.
Yeah.
But,
How was your experience coming under fire? Can you talk a little bit about that? I can't imagine what that would be like coming under fire with mortar fire and such. What was that like? Was it terrifying, scared? I mean, what were you feeling when, particularly?
well, they missed, and I don't know what I felt. But hell, I wasn't scared. I didn't run to the basement like
Yeah.
this. Sergeant Dabb was his name. And like I say, they were going to shoot him when they got home. And I didn't find out about it until last year. But I'm glad they didn't. That would have been a mess to straighten out. But I honestly don't, to this day, I can't remember how long I stayed there to watch but we stayed there and had field glasses on it, so we know that there was nobody there, and eventually it probably got dark because we went back by there on the next day to see whether, and what we saw was just bloody bandages, but that indicated that we did some damage,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But when you have four 105s raking an area, you had to do something.
Yeah. Through your entire path through France, Germany, and Austria, did you ever come under fire any other times during that period?
No.
No.
Never. I was pretty lucky. I was in for 5 years, 2 months, and 1 day, and nothing happened. So, but I'm glad that I took the time to go to Denver and learn or pass the test and become an officer, because when you're enlisted men, I mean, sometimes they needed somebody and you'd send them to someplace else, and that got to be a mess when you go to a different place. And, but that's it.
Was there any talk after the war was over in Germany of sending your group to Japan? Was there any concern about having to go to the Pacific, or?
We were alerted to go, but we never went. I don't know why, but I didn't ask too many questions.
Yeah, yeah.
But the little town of Eggstedt, where that painting was done, was just a farm community, and had honey buckets there. Do you know what a honey bucket is? Well, they had them. I don't know any, and that's the way my battery looked, just like that. I mean, everybody looked alike. Had wire helmets on, and not wire helmets, but steel helmets, but they had lacing up
The
there.
mesh,
Then
yeah.
you could put, well, they don't have any in it.
Camouflage.
Some of them have camouflage in it. And, but I don't, what the hell is this one? Oh, that was, uh,
Yeah,
when I was first in the Army.
what I'll do is I'll photograph that when we'll conclude the interview, and then we'll go through some of those things, and you can
Okay, well,
we'll photograph it, and you can describe it as.
Okay.
So, well, how was after the war was over? How were the locals, the natives, the Austrians, the Germans, towards you guys? Did they? I guess, or did you even interact with the local people? I mean, they were now a defeated people.
We weren't there long enough to really
Okay.
get interacting with anybody there.
Yeah.
Like I said, we stayed in this one house waiting for to move, and sat there and played gin rummy every night, and sleep in the morning or whatever. But we never had any contact with them. I mean, I think maybe we might have been told not to. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were in Austria, I mean, hell, those people were all right. They weren't.
How did you feel when you went back with your son, traveled that again? Did
that
old
was-
feelings emerge? I mean, how was that trip for you?
Oh, just ride in the park.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we rented the little car that
Uh-huh.
had, what do you call it?
Peugeot or Volvo or
No, no. Well, we
Yeah.
just, but the damn thing would go too fast. And he got going 100 mile an hour one time, and I said, Terry, cut this thing off, or I'm going to jump out. I'm not going to get wrecked with you. Well, damn, he's young and dumb, I guess. He's going to drive as fast as it would go.
Volkswagen?
No,
No?
no, no,
Mercedes?
no, close. Porsche.
Porsche. Okay. Yeah.
These golden years,
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
that golden. Right.
Well, how was it? So after the war, then, or you shipped back for ocean liner, I guess, back to the States, and where were you discharged?
From where they got off the boat was, I think it was in New Jersey again. But I had to report to Fort Logan down, and that's where I got somewhere along in here. I've got papers from there. I'm discharged as a captain, and that major deal that came up later as sometime, I don't know. I didn't. I never did serve as a major. I mean, I just.
What was it like after being away and in the service for 5 years to adjust now to civilian life? How was that transition? What did you do when you got back home and were now out of the service? Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Well, the first thing I did was buy a suit. It was brown with white lines. That was what I wouldn't buy one today looking like that. But anyhow, that was the first, and a hat. That was the first. Hughes Clothing Company.
Was it hard to adjust to civilian life again, or how was that transition for you?
I don't think it was hard. I got married. she ended up with MS, and I pushed the
Wheelchair?
wheelchair for 15 years. And when she died, I stayed single for 18 years. And I now go to the gym every day, except I didn't go today. It's your fault.
I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to be sure I didn't get hit by a car for the. Anyhow, I go to the gym so that I'll be strong enough to wheel my own chair. But I'm not going to be in one. I'm just going to continue going every day to the gym. And once in a while, I don't go on Sunday because there's so damn much football. You got to watch it starting early to get it all in. And but I think that's one reason I'm still here, is because I've been going to a gym for quite some time. And Dorothy, who you just met, I mean, I don't tell everybody that, but she's got dementia, and that's supposedly a forerunner to Alzheimer. But the doctor assured us that she is not going to get Alzheimer. I mean, they've given her enough medicine that she's almost practically clear back to where she was. But why she got it is while we were still in Phoenix, I got her to go to my doctor, and he wanted an MRI right away. To make a long story short, the reason there was an aneurysm up here, a giant aneurysm, and we got the best doctor in Phoenix, Spitzler, his name. He's the best in the world, working up here on your head. And when we left down there, he touched her on the shoulder and said, "I don't want to see you for 3 years." And he knew what he was talking about, because in almost exactly 3 years, this clip that he put on the aneurysm dried up. And when it dries up, then it's touching something else up there that makes it kind of squirrely. And but she's been back down for another checkup in Denver, and they confirmed that she's okay because of the medicine she takes has got it under control.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We're not concerned. Well, we're concerned, but we're not concerned like we were when it was first diagnosed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of wind down this interview, is there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? Is there anything that we missed, any stories, anything that we missed that you wanted to lay down on tape before?
I don't know. I can just point out the things here. These are all the stories.
Yeah. What I'll do is when we finish, we'll pull these down, and you can tell a little story about everything. Okay. I guess my one last question would be, or I guess I've got a couple questions yet. How do you think the war affected you, or changed you, or played into your life? Your experiences? Did it, or didn't it? It was just.
I don't know. A lot of guys went off their rocker after being under fire, and I don't know. I just didn't take it too serious, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, well, there's that one picture there. I'm in call it a ready-made foxhole. some 155 or something had hit there, and so there was other firing on it, so I just jumped in there and I don't, I just, I never complained about anything in the Army.
Good.
It was, I just wasn't, wasn't anything you could do about it except to do what they wanted you to do, and that's what I tried to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't, I think if you take some of this stuff and
Okay. Well, let's
like there, that was a propaganda where they dropped those things from airplanes, and we your first winter in France.
let me let's conclude the interview, and then we'll set up, and you can, and I'll set pictures up of this, and you can describe a little bit. So, well, anyhow, Ben, I'd wanted to thank you for your time today with this interview, and also want to thank you very much for your service to our country.
Wait till you get my bill.
Okay, thank you.
Do it now. Well, we landed at Marseille, and we were there for 2 or 3 weeks, and we were out on the high country, and every night Bed Check Charlie would fly over and checking on whether we were moving or staying there. We were staying there. And then the time come to move, we moved, and the first night it rained and those trucks got stuck, and we had a hell of a time getting them, but we did. And we moved on, and until we went to Wimena, France, which is on the route of that rainbow, and we relieved the 45th Division, which was from, part of which was from Fort Collins, and which I thought was quite a coincidence to happen. And we went on up Hatton. That was a lot of fighting there, and there was a town called Bitch, but I don't see it there. But I can remember the general putting out a directive and saying it was a bitch, because one of the infantries was wiped out to a man, and it wasn't us, but it was, I don't know how, communication just wasn't that good. I mean, you know, you get rumors, and but we went all the way to Austria, and that's where we were headed for the Brenner Pass, and but we never used it. I mean, we didn't have to. The war was over.
Yeah. So you started in Marseille, went through France, Germany, Austria. You said you crossed the Rhine 5 times.
Rhine,
yeah. Was there bridges still in place and such, or how did you guys cross the river?
Pontoon bridges.
Pontoon bridge. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty.
That's me in 1941 in the 181st Field Artillery, Camp Forest, Tennessee. This was painted in Eichstätt, Germany, or Austria, one of the two, what the heck. Anyhow, the artist wanted to do it for, he said he wanted some chocolate. And I had a can of cocoa sent to me from an aunt in Lincoln, Nebraska. I didn't bother to open it, so I didn't know what was in it, but I paid him with that, and that's all he wanted was some chocolate. Well, he came back and he was laughing and he opened it and it was full of peanut butter. But she had made the candy and was sending me candy and not cocoa. But to my knowledge, I don't know what else I gave him, but that was done there. And at that time, the only ribbon we had was that nut, one, and it was done in 1945, and his initials were KG. So it proves that I did have hair at one time. This probably wasn't my battery, but all of them looked alike. And
How many men were there usually to a battery?
100 men to a battery.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
my favorite story. I took 100 over, and I brought 100 home.
Excellent.
That didn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody battery commander. In fact, my friend Plunkett, as I told you, he lost 2 men in a matter of 2 minutes or less, and so somebody was looking after me.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.